Hello folks and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to cover a topic I get asked about a whole bunch online and in person. Labret piercings, vertical labret piercings, what are the pros and cons, which one is better, what should I get if I'm thinking about it? Let's jump right into it. Now let's just start by defining what we're talking about when we're talking about these two piercings. So labret piercing is the term for any piercing on the lower lip. That's right, it can be any placement. It can be in the center of your lower lip, it can be off to one side, it can be a paired set. If it's on your lower lip, it's a form of labret. For the purpose of this video, we're going to mostly be talking about centered labret piercings because that relates most directly to the vertical labret piercing, which, as the name implies, is a labret piercing done vertically through the lip, and here are some examples of that. Now, while these two piercings may be similar, they do have some really key differences, so depending on what your goals are and also your concerns when it comes to getting pierced, there definitely may be a piercing between these two that's the better fit for you. The biggest concern and the biggest thing folks think about when it comes to any oral piercing, but especially lower lip piercings, is damage to your teeth and gums. And this is because any oral piercing carries the risk of causing tooth and gum damage. It doesn't matter how good of a piercer you see and how high quality jewelry you wear, it's still a risk. Now that being said, when it comes to a traditional labret piercing, there's a lot that we can do to minimize this risk. The biggest thing is seeing a good, reputable piercer with a lot of experience doing oral piercings who's going to really thoughtfully take a look at your teeth, gums, the structure and anatomy of your mouth, and make sure we're placing this piercing in a way that's the least likely to cause damage. Unfortunately, there's a lot of piercers out there who kind of just don't care and they'll put it wherever it seems like it looks good on the front, and they don't really take the time to check and make sure that the backing isn't going to be rubbing on your teeth and gums or causing irritation and issues. So seeing a good piercer is really important. Along with that, wearing properly fitted implant-grade titanium jewelry. I don't suggest plastic. It's still harder than your teeth and gums, so it can still cause damage. And there's no currently biocompatible body-safe plastics on the market for jewelry in those sizes. So what you end up with is some random polymer which can cause its own allergic reactions and even break down in the body over time. Not a great idea. So properly fitted implant-grade titanium jewelry helps a whole bunch, and so does something called nesting. Nesting is a process by where we get the back disc of an oral piercing to sit in a little nest or a little pocket inside the lip, and this prevents it from rubbing on the teeth and gums. And here are some examples of what some well-nested oral piercings look like. When we achieve really good, really comfortable nesting, the back disc really doesn't come in contact with your teeth and gums at all anymore, and this can really help minimize damage. Now that being said, with any oral piercing that exits into your mouth, the chance of damage is never zero. We can do a lot to minimize it, but we can never make that risk go away completely. So for folks who are really worried about the health of their teeth and gums, vertical labrets. Vertical labrets are great because these piercings don't go inside your mouth. They just rest through that vermilion border of your lip. Now, is it possible that you could still bite or hit your teeth on the top of a vertical labret? Yes, but you'd really have to put in some effort to catch that jewelry on your teeth that way. But for the most part, by the time you're through the initial healing phase of this piercing, you've gotten really good to adjusting to how you eat, drink, and talk with it, and it takes a lot of work. Like, you have to make some pretty silly faces to actually get that top bead in contact with your teeth when it's placed correctly. You gotta, like, do a bunch of these. And, yeah, it's just not really something that's gonna happen accidentally eating or talking the way it can with a labret piercing. So a really big pro for vertical labrets is that they don't exit inside the mouth. For clients who are really worried about oral damage or who already have oral damage from being younger, from braces, from whatever the case may be, vertical labrets are a super great alternative. Now, not only are vertical labrets great if we're worried about minimizing oral damage, but they have some pros when it comes to jewelry as well. One thing that I like about my vertical philtrum, and I talk about in my video about vertical philtrums versus standard philtrums, I'll go ahead and link that here, is that I can wear decorative pieces that need to face a direction on them, and I don't have to worry about them spinning. So for example, when I wear like a teardrop shape, I don't have to worry about it sitting like this or upside down. And the same thing goes for a labret. So if you wanted to wear like a cute little moon or a heart, it's going to spin all the time in a traditional labret piercing. But in a vertical, it'll be fixed on that curved barbell, so it'll just stay perfectly on the top of it all the time. For a lot of folks who are going for that particular aesthetic for their piercing, that makes vertical labrets perfect. However, There's always a con. And the con with vertical labrets is that it's usually not practical to wear hoops in them. So if the look you're going for is a nice snug hoop that wraps around your lower lip like what I wear in my paired labrets, you're going to want to get a traditional labret piercing. You're not going to want to get a vertical labret. Now you may hear this and say, but Lynn, I see all these people on TikTok wearing little hoops in their vertical labret piercings. Sometimes some people get away with this and have it be fine. Sometimes some people try and do this and it causes their vertical labret to migrate. And once this piercing migrates, it is not going back to where it was. I have seen far too many clients, especially since this TikTok trend, try to put hoops in their vertical labret, accidentally grab the wrong size, not completely close the hoop properly, or just catch it funny eating or drinking and tear their vertical labret piercing or start it migrating. So if you are planning to try wear a hoop in your vertical, I would only wear it for an event or an occasion, like a photo shoot, a party, things like that, and then switch back to your normal curve afterwards. I would also make sure that you are appropriately sized for this hoop by a piercer so you don't accidentally get something that's too small or too big and causes issues. And even with all of that, understand that you're taking a risk to wear a hoop in it. So if it does end up causing things to migrate or getting caught and tearing, know that that is a risk that you signed up for in doing that. So for most clients, if their long-term goal is to wear a hoop, for example, me, I basically never wear studs in my paired labrets. It's not the aesthetic I like. It's not what I wanted to wear. I was completely fine committing to traditional labrets for these so that I could wear hoops in them. That's the look that I wanted. That's what I like. I want to wear cool decorative hoops. I've got these little ones in right now that are little chain links. I have barbed wire hoops. I have big cuffs. That's the aesthetic I prefer. So for me, traditional labret all the way. If your goal is a hoop, traditional labret all the way. If you're more open and you're more worried about your teeth, vertical labret may be a better option for you. As an aside, if you want the look of a hoop in a vertical labret, but you don't want to risk damaging your piercing, consider doing a chain. Here's a picture of one of my clients rocking a chain in their vertical labret. And yes, I will admit this is going to be a lot of work to keep clean with food and drink and talking and makeup. It's worth it if you really like the aesthetic, and vertical labrets can be pretty user-friendly to change in and out. So you can put the chain on when you want to for events and occasions and take it off when you don't. And it gives a very similar aesthetic to a hoop in that piercing without nearly as much of the risk of actually wearing a hoop. That kind of brings us into our next point to make, which is about stability. When it comes to stability, traditional labrets are far more stable than vertical labrets. Now when I'm talking about stability, what I mean are things like migration, rejection, how the piercing recovers from a snag, a tear, an accidental bite, all of these factors. With a vertical labret, they're a little bit more prone to migrating, they're more prone to rejecting, and they don't always handle something like a really good snag or tear as well as a traditional labret. With a traditional labret, short of getting that thing completely ripped out of your face, you are probably not going to do anything to damage it too badly. I have had clients get hit or kicked in the face and literally bend the jewelry they were wearing in their labret over and still have their piercing be completely fine. I cannot say the same for vertical labrets, which I have seen clients end up having to retire after just yanking it accidentally very hard on something that they were drinking or eating from, or getting tangled in another partner's jewelry. So stability-wise, you definitely have more of that with a traditional labret. You also have the ability to stretch a traditional labret piercing. I have a blog post all about labret stretching on my website that kind of goes over how you do that safely, but with a vertical labret, you're certainly not going to be stretching it super huge. If you wanted to stretch it a little bit, you probably could. For example, I wear my vertical philtrum at a 10 gauge. I'm certainly not going to be going much larger than that because there just won't be enough lip tissue to support that. It will just migrate right out of my lip. Same thing goes for vertical. So if your plan is to stretch or have a large labret, a traditional labret is going to be your obvious winner. That is going to be your preference. If you know that you might be pretty rough on your piercings, a traditional labret might be the better choice for you because of its greater stability. And then of course, aside from all of those pros and cons that we kind of just discussed, there's just the basic visual differences. A vertical labret is going to have two visible ends, one on the top and one on the underside of the lip, and a traditional labret is only going to have one. This may seem super obvious, but the appearance of those two things could really matter to you, and if you're someone who's unsure what may work for you, my personal suggestion is to get some eyelash glue and some cheap fake piercing beads and glue them onto your lip and sit in the mirror and talk and smile and look at yourself, see what you like the look of more. And when it comes to looks and things like that, makeup is definitely a consideration for some clients. Lipstick is really easy to do with a stud in a traditional labret and becomes a little bit of a challenge when we're working around hoops. But with vertical labrets, you always have that bead right there, and that can make applying lipstick or even chapstick or lip balm a little bit tricky sometimes. You either need to apply makeup directly over it and clean it off afterwards, or try and apply makeup gently around. It's definitely a little bit more of a to-do. However, some people really like how that bead looks sitting in their lipstick. I for one think that dark colors, especially blacks and dark reds, pop because you can see the gold bead of my vertical philtrum right in the middle of my upper lip. If you're someone who does and wears a lot of makeup, it's something for you to consider the aesthetic of how this piercing is going to flow and work with your makeup. At the end of the day, I don't think one of these piercings is better than the other. I think both serve a purpose for different clients and different reasons. I love vertical labrets. I love that they're a safer alternative. I love that they minimize the risk of damage to your teeth. I think there's a lot of cool jewelry and cool looks and aesthetics you can do with them. However, as you'll notice, I don't wear vertical labrets. I wear traditional labrets because for me, for my personal aesthetic, for my preference of hoops, and for knowing that I can be a little rough and tumble on my piercings, the stability and the ability to wear hoops with traditional labrets is what worked out best for me and my goals. That being said, I understand that by having these piercings, I'm taking a little bit of an extra risk with my teeth and gums. For me, that's a risk that I'm comfortable taking. I feel pretty well educated and pretty knowledgeable about what risk factors to look out for. I feel like I do a pretty good job of maintaining my oral hygiene, and I know what I'm doing when it comes to maintaining these piercings. So while I know the risk is there, I'm not overly concerned about it because I feel very capable of doing what I can to mitigate and manage those risks. And that's how any client should feel if a piercer is working with you to get you to have an oral piercing safely. You should feel comfortably educated and comfortably informed about the decisions you're making for your body and the risks that come along with them. Vertical labrets, traditional labrets, both are really great piercings that fulfill different needs and different desires for different clients. So if you've been debating getting one over the other, I really hope this video helps you kind of make a decision or see the pros and cons of different styles. I'd really love to hear from you in the comments down below if this video helped sway your mind one way or the other, or if there's anything I pointed out about either piercing that you found particularly interesting or maybe didn't know. I really enjoy doing these comparison videos as well, so if you want to see me compare and contrast some other piercings, I already did philtrum and vertical philtrum, but if there's any others, let me know down in the comments, and I'll put it on my short list of videos to try and make. As per usual, your support means the world to me, so if you like this content, if you like the content I create, please hit like, please subscribe. Every single like and subscribe really matters. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. It was great sitting down and chatting, and I know we'll hang out again soon. Bye!